In the grand halls of the Tudor court, Mary Boleyn stood quietly, her eyes tracing the tapestry of events that had unfolded around her family like a storm sweeping through the very foundation of England. The opulence of the palace masked the undercurrents of anxiety and fragile alliances, yet Mary could not help but feel the weight of the recent upheavals. Her sister, Anne Boleyn, once the dazzling queen who had captivated King Henry VIII, was now a ghost in the corridors of power, her rise and tragic fall etched deeply into the annals of the kingdom. The air was thick with whispers and guarded glances, the court's gaiety veiling the ruthless games of ambition and survival. Henry's relentless pursuit of a male heir had shattered the old order, sending ripples through the religious and political landscape. The king's break from Rome had not only altered the spiritual allegiance of the realm but had also sealed Anne's fate. Accused of treason and adultery, she had been executed, leaving behind a legacy both revered and reviled. Mary's thoughts turned to Anne's daughter, the young Elizabeth, whose presence at court was as delicate and precarious as a candle flickering in the wind. Declared illegitimate by the king's decree, Elizabeth's claim to her father's throne was denied, and she was kept under close watch, a living reminder of her mother's fraught past. To many at court, she was a symbol of scandal, a child born of a queen who had defied tradition and paid the ultimate price. Yet, beneath that fragile exterior, Mary sensed a quiet strength in Elizabeth, a resilience forged in the crucible of courtly intrigue and personal loss. The Tudor court was no place for innocence, it was a battleground where loyalty was currency and betrayal a constant threat. Mary knew all too well the dangerous dance her family had been forced to perform, and she saw in Elizabeth's guarded demeanor the echoes of a future yet unwritten. The grandeur of the court was both a blessing and a curse. Lavish banquets and splendid ceremonies masked the ever-present dangers lurking behind velvet curtains. Mary remembered the moments when Anne had ruled these halls with a blend of charm and cunning, navigating the king's favor and the court's envy with deft skill. But the very ambitions that had elevated Anne had also drawn the ire of powerful enemies, leading to her downfall. Now, as Mary observed the shifting alliances and whispered conspiracies, she understood that Elizabeth's path would be fraught with similar perils. The young princess was caught between the legacy of her mother's rebellion and the rigid expectations of royal blood. To be a queen by blood was a birthright, but to live as a prisoner by choice was a fate Elizabeth would have to grapple with in the years to come. Mary's reflections were tinged with a mixture of sorrow and hope. The Tudor dynasty was a house built on ambition and sacrifice, where the line between triumph and tragedy was perilously thin. Anne's story was a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the costs of power and desire. Yet, in Elizabeth, there was the promise of a new chapter, one that might transcend the shadows cast by her mother's fate. The religious upheaval sweeping through England added another layer of complexity. Henry's establishment of the Church of England had severed ties with the papacy, igniting tensions that reverberated through every corner of the realm. Faith and politics were intertwined inextricably, and the court was a stage where these forces clashed openly and covertly. Mary sensed that Elizabeth's fate was inseparable from these broader struggles, her identity shaped as much by faith as by blood. As Mary moved through the corridors, she could feel the eyes of courtiers upon her, a mixture of sympathy, suspicion, and calculation. The Boleyn name carried both prestige and peril, and each member of the family was a piece on the chessboard of Tudor power. In this world, survival required not only wit and courage but also a keen understanding of when to step forward and when to recede into the shadows. Mary's own life had been touched by the volatile currents of the court. Once a favored mistress of Henry VIII, she had witnessed firsthand the king's capricious affections and the precariousness of favor. Her experiences had taught her the value of discretion and resilience, lessons she hoped would serve Elizabeth well. The young princess's future was uncertain, but Mary believed that with careful guidance, Elizabeth might navigate the treacherous waters ahead. The echoes of Anne's reign lingered in the court's atmosphere, a mixture of admiration and resentment. Some saw Anne as a reformer, a woman who challenged the old order and sought to reshape the kingdom. Others viewed her as a dangerous disruptor whose ambitions had brought ruin upon herself and those around her. Elizabeth's existence was a living testament to these divided perceptions, embodying both the hope and the caution of a nation in flux. Mary's gaze settled on Elizabeth, who stood apart from the court spectacle, her expression thoughtful and guarded. The child's eyes held a depth beyond her years, a silent understanding of the complexities surrounding her. Elizabeth's journey was just beginning, and though the path ahead was uncertain, Mary sensed a strength that could one day alter the course of history. The Tudor court was a place where destinies were forged and broken, where the ambitions of kings and queens shaped the fate of England. Within this turbulent world, Elizabeth's story was unfolding, a tale of blood and power, of survival and self-discovery. As Mary watched, she felt the weight of history pressing upon them all, a reminder that the past was never truly past, but a living force that shaped each moment and every choice. In the quiet moments between the court's grand performances, Mary allowed herself a fleeting hope that Elizabeth might rise above the shadows cast by her mother's fall. The young princess was a beacon in a time of uncertainty, a symbol of continuity amid change. Yet, Mary also knew that the road ahead would demand sacrifices and courage beyond what most could imagine. The Tudor dynasty was a tapestry woven with threads of ambition, betrayal, faith, and resilience. Mary's reflections on her sister's rise and fall, and on Elizabeth's precarious position, painted a vivid picture of a family caught in the relentless tides of history. The story of Elizabeth as a queen by blood, yet a prisoner by choice, was just beginning to unfold, promising a journey marked by both peril and potential. As the court buzzed with rumors and shifting alliances, Mary stood as both witness and protector, her heart torn between the memories of a sister lost and the uncertain future of a niece yet to claim her place. The Tudor court, with all its splendor and danger, was the crucible in which Elizabeth's destiny would be forged, a destiny that would test the very limits of power, loyalty, and identity. Elizabeth's earliest memories were woven with shadows and whispers, fragments of a world both grand and fragile. Born into the turbulence of the Tudor court, her arrival was marked by the volatile union of her mother, Anne Boleyn, and King Henry VIII, a marriage that had ignited religious upheaval and set England on a path of irrevocable change. From the moment of her birth, Elizabeth's fate was entangled with the shifting tides of power and faith. The splendor of the court, with its ornate chambers and glittering ceremonies, was a distant backdrop to the more intimate and often harsh realities of Elizabeth's childhood. Anne's contentious marriage to Henry had stirred both hope and enmity. The Queen's ambition to secure a male heir for the throne had challenged centuries of tradition and provoked fierce opposition. Elizabeth, as the child of this union, was born into a world where every breath carried the weight of political consequence. Her mother's dramatic fall from grace left an indelible mark on Elizabeth's early years. Anne's execution stripped Elizabeth not only of her mother's presence but also of her legitimacy in the eyes of the court and her father. Declared illegitimate by Henry's decree, Elizabeth was removed from the center of royal favor and sent away from the bustling heart of power. The castle walls that enclosed her became both sanctuary and prison, a place where she was protected from the dangers outside but isolated from the life she might have known. Despite the stigma that clung to her name, Elizabeth's upbringing was carefully managed by those who recognized the importance of preserving her potential. Her education was meticulous and rigorous, a testament to the hopes vested in her future. Tutors versed in classical languages, literature, and the arts nurtured her intellect, fostering a resilience that would become her shield against uncertainty. Mary, her aunt, and other guardians ensured that Elizabeth's mind remained sharp, even as her status was precarious. The religious turmoil of the era cast a long shadow over Elizabeth's formative years. The English Reformation, sparked by Henry's break with the Catholic Church, had fractured the spiritual landscape of the kingdom. Protestant and Catholic factions vied for influence, their conflicts echoing through the halls where Elizabeth was raised. Her education was not merely academic, it was an immersion into the competing doctrines and loyalties that defined the era, shaping her understanding of faith as both a personal conviction and a political instrument. Elizabeth's childhood was marked by a delicate balance between privilege and peril. Though she was a princess by birth, the denial of her legitimacy relegated her to a liminal space, neither fully embraced by the court nor entirely cast aside. This duality cultivated in her a keen awareness of the fragility of status and the necessity of caution. She learned early to read the moods of those around her, to measure words carefully, and to guard her true thoughts behind a mask of composure. The fluctuating fortunes of the Tudor dynasty further complicated Elizabeth's world. The death of Henry's male heir, Prince Edward, and the brief reign of Queen Jane Seymour's son brought moments of hope and despair. Elizabeth's position shifted with each political turn, her safety and prospects tethered to the survival of factions that alternately embraced or rejected her claim. The court was a chessboard where alliances formed and crumbled, and Elizabeth was a piece moved according to the designs of more powerful players. Within this turbulent environment, Elizabeth's character began to take shape. Her experiences of loss and displacement fostered a resilience that would define her later rule. She cultivated a formidable intellect and a shrewd understanding of the political landscape, traits that were honed by necessity rather than choice. The isolation imposed upon her became a crucible in which her identity was forged, a blend of royal blood and cautious survival. Key figures in Elizabeth's life played pivotal roles in nurturing her potential amidst adversity. Tutors like Roger Ascham introduced her to the classics and humanist thought, encouraging a love of learning that transcended the confines of her situation. Guardians and courtiers who saw beyond her illegitimacy invested in her education and well-being, recognizing that Elizabeth's lineage carried a significance that could not be ignored. These relationships provided her with anchors in a world defined by uncertainty. The religious tensions that permeated Elizabeth's upbringing were mirrored in the shifting spiritual policies of the realm. Under Henry's reign, the establishment of the Church of England had redefined loyalty, but his successors swung between Protestantism and Catholicism, each change bringing new risks and demands for conformity. Elizabeth's education and personal faith were thus shaped by a landscape where belief was inseparable from political allegiance, compelling her to develop a nuanced approach to matters of conscience and power. Elizabeth's growing awareness of her royal bloodline was tempered by the constraints imposed upon her. She understood that her claim to the throne was both a privilege and a peril, a truth that demanded discretion and strategy. The label of illegitimacy was a burden she bore silently, a barrier that complicated her relationships and limited her freedom. Yet, within these confines, she nurtured an inner strength and a vision of self that would later challenge the very foundations of her exclusion. As Elizabeth matured, the court remained a place of both fascination and fear. She observed the fates of those who rose and fell in favor, the intricate dance of ambition and loyalty that dictated survival. Her own position was precarious, but her education and temperament prepared her to endure. The lessons of her childhood, loss, exile, learning, and observation, were the building blocks of a future queen who would navigate these dangers with unparalleled skill. The narrative of Elizabeth's youth is a portrait of a princess shaped by the contradictions of her time, born to privilege yet denied legitimacy, educated as a future monarch yet confined as a ward of the state, nurtured in faith yet caught in religious turmoil. Her story is one of resilience born from adversity, intellect forged in isolation, and identity crafted amidst the shifting sands of Tudor politics. These early years laid the foundation for Elizabeth's transformation from a child overshadowed by scandal to a woman poised to reclaim her place in history. The challenges she faced were formidable, but they also instilled in her the qualities of patience, prudence, and determination. Elizabeth's education was not merely academic, it was a lesson in survival, a preparation for the immense responsibilities and dangers that awaited her. In this crucible of change and conflict, Elizabeth learned to assert herself with subtlety and strength, qualities that would become hallmarks of her reign. Her childhood was a testament to the power of intellect and resilience in the face of uncertainty, a narrative that speaks to the complexities of identity and destiny within the turbulent Tudor era. The princess who once lived in the shadow of her mother's fall was quietly preparing to emerge as a figure of enduring significance. Elizabeth's adolescence unfolded within the confines of royal residences that felt more like gilded cages than homes. The once vibrant child, whose early years had been filled with lessons and cautious freedoms, now found herself living under constant surveillance. The volatile reigns of Henry's successors cast long shadows over her existence, each new monarch bringing shifts in policy and suspicion that tightened the noose around her precarious position. Her days were marked by a regimented routine, designed as much to protect as to control. The young princess was moved between palaces, Hatfield House, Woodstock, and later other estates, each relocation a reminder of her uncertain status. The walls that surrounded her were lined not only with tapestries and portraits but also with watchful eyes and whispered rumors. Elizabeth was a prize and a threat in equal measure, her very bloodline made her a focal point for plots and power struggles that spanned the court. The threat of imprisonment or execution loomed ominously over Elizabeth's youth. With the executions of her mother and other relatives still fresh in memory, the dangers were tangible. The political intrigue of the Tudor court was ruthless, and Elizabeth was often caught in the crossfire of factional battles between Catholic and Protestant camps. Each regime change brought new scrutiny, and her allegiance was questioned relentlessly. To survive, Elizabeth had to learn the art of caution without surrendering her identity. Political machinations swirled around her like a storm. The court was a labyrinth of shifting loyalties, where alliances were forged and broken with alarming speed. Elizabeth's very existence was politicized. She was a symbol wielded by those who sought to challenge or reinforce the reigning monarch's legitimacy. Plots to place her on the throne were whispered in secret chambers, while others sought to silence her claim permanently. In this dangerous game, Elizabeth's ability to navigate treacherous waters became essential. Despite the ever-present dangers, Elizabeth's character deepened and matured. The enforced seclusion and constant vigilance shaped her into a figure of quiet strength and shrewdness. She learned to mask her fears with a composed exterior, to speak with measured words, and to observe more than she revealed. Her intellect, already sharpened by her education, became a tool for survival and influence. Elizabeth was no longer just a royal child but a cautious player in the deadly politics of Tudor England. Religious conflict intensified the peril that surrounded Elizabeth. The oscillation between Protestant and Catholic monarchs, Edward VI's Protestant reforms followed by Mary I's Catholic restoration, meant that Elizabeth's own faith and safety were in continual jeopardy. The young princess was forced to navigate the dangerous religious landscape with care, aware that a misstep could lead to accusations of heresy or treason. Her ability to maintain a delicate balance between outward conformity and private conviction was a testament to her growing political acumen. Amid this turmoil, Elizabeth developed a keen understanding of the court's dynamics. She observed the fates of courtiers who rose and fell, noting the importance of loyalty, discretion, and timing. She learned to form alliances cautiously, recognizing that trust was scarce and often fleeting. Her survival depended on her capacity to remain adaptable, to read the intentions of others, and to present herself as a figure above factional disputes, even as she was deeply enmeshed in them. Elizabeth's internal struggles were profound. She grappled with the tension between asserting her royal identity and the need for self-preservation. The desire to claim her rightful place as heir to the throne was tempered by the realities of her vulnerability. Each decision carried weighty consequences, not only for herself but for those who might rally to her cause or view her as a threat. This delicate balancing act required immense courage and patience. Throughout these years, Elizabeth cultivated a network of supporters who recognized her potential and sought to protect her. Trusted advisors, tutors, and sympathetic courtiers became her confidants and advocates, providing counsel and safeguarding her interests. Their loyalty was crucial, offering a measure of stability amid the shifting tides of court politics. Yet Elizabeth knew that such alliances were fragile, and she remained vigilant against betrayal. The psychological toll of living under constant threat was considerable. Elizabeth experienced moments of isolation and doubt, aware that her very existence challenged the precarious order established by her rivals. The weight of expectation and danger pressed heavily, but she channeled her anxieties into discipline and resolve. Her developing sense of self was shaped by the need to be both resilient and strategic, qualities that would define her later reign. As the years passed, Elizabeth's reputation within the court evolved. She became known for her intelligence, poise, and cautious diplomacy. Though often confined, she was never invisible. Her presence commanded attention and respect. The princess who had once been marginalized was gradually emerging as a figure to be reckoned with, her claim to the throne a persistent undercurrent in the kingdom's politics. The narrative of Elizabeth's adolescence is one of transformation amid adversity. The enforced seclusion and political intrigue forged in her a leader who understood the complexities of power and the necessity of prudence. Her survival was not merely a matter of fortune but a testament to her ability to navigate a perilous landscape with patience and wisdom. Within the walls of her confinement, Elizabeth was quietly preparing to step onto a larger stage. The dangers she faced demanded a careful cultivation of identity, a blending of caution and ambition that would allow her to endure and eventually assert her authority. Her story during these years is a portrait of a young woman shaped by the harsh realities of Tudor politics yet determined to claim her destiny on her own terms. Elizabeth's experience as a prisoner by choice was not one of passive resignation but of active survival. She chose to guard herself, to bide her time, and to emerge when the moment was right. This period of her life reveals the intricate interplay of vulnerability and strength, of concealment and assertion, that defined her path from a vulnerable adolescent to a formidable monarch. Her journey through these fraught years underscores the perilous nature of royal life in Tudor England, where bloodline conferred both privilege and peril. Elizabeth's ability to endure and adapt amidst the religious and political upheavals around her set the stage for a reign that would ultimately transform England. The challenges she faced in youth forged the resilience and insight that would become her most potent tools as queen. As Elizabeth continued to navigate the treacherous currents of court intrigue and religious conflict, she was quietly shaping the identity that would one day command the loyalty of a nation. Her story during this time is a testament to the complexities of survival and ambition in a world where every choice was fraught with risk, and where the line between prisoner and ruler was perilously thin. The death of Queen Mary I in 1558 marked a pivotal turning point in Elizabeth's life, a moment when the long shadows of confinement and suspicion began to lift, allowing her to emerge from the margins of power and step into the light of sovereignty. The years of cautious endurance, of measured silence and careful observation, had prepared her for this moment, when the crown that had eluded her for so long was finally within reach. Elizabeth approached her accession with a blend of hope and guarded caution. She was acutely aware of the delicate balance she needed to maintain in a realm still deeply divided by religious strife and political uncertainty. The legacy left by her predecessors was fraught. The Protestant reforms of Edward VI had been rolled back under Mary's Catholic restoration, leaving England a nation torn between faiths. Elizabeth's challenge was immense, to heal these wounds while asserting her authority as queen in her own right. From the moment she took the throne, Elizabeth demonstrated a keen understanding of the complexities that would define her reign. She employed a strategic use of court alliances, carefully navigating the factions that had once viewed her with suspicion or hostility. Her earlier years of political seclusion had honed her instincts. She knew when to extend trust and when to wield power with firmness. This delicate diplomacy was essential in uniting a fractured court and country. Religious settlement became a cornerstone of Elizabeth's early rule. She sought to establish a middle way, a via media, that would reconcile the divergent beliefs that threatened to tear England apart. The Elizabethan religious settlement was both a political and spiritual maneuver, designed to placate Catholics and Protestants alike while asserting the supremacy of the monarch. Elizabeth's approach reflected her pragmatic understanding that religious peace was vital to political stability. Elizabeth's assertion of authority extended beyond religious matters. She was determined to be recognized not merely as a figurehead but as a sovereign capable of decisive leadership. Her careful management of the court, her measured responses to challenges, and her cultivation of an image that combined regal dignity with approachability marked her emergence as a formidable ruler. The Queen's presence commanded attention, and her speeches and proclamations conveyed a rare blend of intellect and charisma. Yet beneath this outward confidence lay an internal struggle. Elizabeth grappled with the sacrifices and compromises that her position demanded. The years of political exile and the stigma of illegitimacy had left scars, shaping her perception of power as both a privilege and a burden. She understood that her personal desires were often subsumed by the demands of the crown, that the freedoms she once longed for were exchanged for the weight of responsibility. Her transformation from a hidden daughter of scandal to a monarch who embraced her destiny was neither sudden nor simple. It was a gradual process, marked by moments of uncertainty and resolve. Elizabeth's reign began with careful steps, as she consolidated power through a network of loyal advisors and supporters who shared her vision for England. Figures like William Cecil became indispensable allies, guiding policy and helping to manage the often fractious court. Elizabeth's relationship with her subjects was carefully cultivated. She understood the importance of public perception and used pageantry, symbolism, and the arts to reinforce her authority and inspire loyalty. The Queen's image as the Virgin Queen became a powerful emblem of her independence and strength, a counterpoint to the male-dominated world in which she ruled. This persona allowed her to navigate court intrigues while maintaining an aura of untouchable sovereignty. The Queen's diplomatic acumen was tested repeatedly as she faced threats from abroad and challenges within her own realm. Elizabeth's foreign policy balanced caution with boldness, seeking to protect England's interests without plunging the nation into ruinous conflict. Her ability to manage complex alliances and rivalries, particularly with Spain and France, underscored her capacity to wield power with finesse. Within the court, Elizabeth's authority was often contested, yet she maintained a firm grip on power through a combination of political savvy and personal magnetism. Her court was a center of culture and intellectual ferment, attracting poets, scholars, and artists whose work celebrated and reinforced the Queen's image. Elizabeth's patronage of the arts not only enriched the cultural life of England but also served as a vehicle for political messaging. The Queen's personal life remained a subject of intrigue and speculation. Elizabeth's choice to remain unmarried was both a political strategy and a personal decision, reflecting her desire to retain autonomy and avoid the potential pitfalls of dynastic marriage. This decision was unprecedented and challenged contemporary notions of female rulership, further cementing her unique place in history. As Elizabeth solidified her reign, she continued to balance the demands of power with moments of introspection. Her speeches and writings reveal a monarch deeply aware of the burdens she bore and the legacy she hoped to leave. The internal conflicts between duty and desire, between public expectation and private solitude, added layers of complexity to her reign. Elizabeth's emergence as a leader was not simply a political achievement but a profound assertion of identity. She had navigated the treacherous path from a marginalized princess to a queen whose authority was recognized both at home and abroad. This transformation was a testament to her resilience and strategic mind, qualities nurtured through years of hardship and preparation. The Queen's reign began with a promise of healing and strength, a vision of England united under her steady hand. Her ascent marked the beginning of a new era, one shaped by her unique approach to governance, religion, and diplomacy. Elizabeth's story at this juncture is one of cautious optimism, tempered by the awareness of the immense challenges that lay ahead. In the halls of her court, Elizabeth's presence was a beacon of continuity and change. She embodied the complex interplay of bloodline, choice, and circumstance that had defined her life. As she assumed the mantle of power, Elizabeth embraced her role not just as a monarch by birth but as a ruler who had earned her place through wisdom and resolve. The narrative of Elizabeth's emergence captures the delicate transition from confinement to command, from shadow to sovereignty. Her early reign was a crucible in which her identity as queen was forged, a blend of political acumen, personal sacrifice, and visionary leadership. This period set the stage for the profound impact she would have on England's future, shaping not only the kingdom but the very nature of monarchy itself. Elizabeth's reign unfolded as a remarkable chapter in England's history, one that redefined the political and cultural landscape of the nation. Against all expectations, she emerged not only as a sovereign who preserved the Tudor legacy but as a monarch who reshaped the very concept of rulership. Her legacy is marked by governance that balanced strength with prudence, religious tolerance with political necessity, and cultural flourishing with diplomatic finesse. Throughout her decades on the throne, Elizabeth demonstrated an extraordinary ability to maintain relative stability in a kingdom still raw from decades of religious conflict. Her religious settlement, though imperfect, provided a framework that allowed for an uneasy peace between Catholics and Protestants. This delicate tolerance was essential in preventing the sectarian violence that had marred other European nations. Elizabeth's pragmatic approach to faith underscored her understanding that unity required compromise and that governance demanded more than ideology. Her reign also witnessed a golden age of the arts and letters. Elizabeth became a patron of poets, playwrights, and scholars, whose work celebrated both the Queen and the English identity. Figures such as William Shakespeare and Sir Francis Drake flourished under her rule, their achievements intertwined with the spirit of national pride and exploration. The court itself became a vibrant center of culture, where creativity was encouraged and harnessed as a tool of political expression. Elizabeth's role as a symbol of female strength and resilience resonated far beyond the court. In a period when female rulers were often viewed with suspicion or outright hostility, she defied prevailing norms by asserting her authority with unwavering confidence. Her image as the Virgin Queen was not merely a personal choice but a powerful political statement that challenged contemporary expectations and carved out a space for female sovereignty. Elizabeth's reign became a beacon for women's potential in leadership, inspiring generations to come. Yet, beneath the public grandeur and political triumphs lay the personal costs of sovereignty. Elizabeth's lifelong vigilance against threats, both real and perceived, fostered a solitude that few could penetrate. The demands of monarchy required sacrifices that extended beyond the public eye, the relinquishing of personal relationships, the constant weighing of loyalty, and the burden of decisions that affected millions. The Queen's private moments were often marked by reflection and a profound sense of isolation. Elizabeth's story is a meditation on the interplay of bloodline, choice, and circumstance. Born into scandal and subjected to years of confinement and suspicion, she transformed her vulnerabilities into sources of strength. Her reign illustrates how identity is forged not solely by birthright but through resilience, wisdom, and the ability to navigate the complexities of power. Elizabeth's life encapsulates the paradoxes of rulership, the tension between public duty and private desire, between the allure of power and the weight of responsibility. Her legacy endures in the institutions she shaped, the cultural renaissance she fostered, and the political stability she secured. Elizabeth's governance laid the groundwork for a modern monarchy, one that balanced tradition with innovation and authority with adaptability. Her reign is often remembered as a defining moment in English history, a period when the nation asserted itself on the world stage amid internal transformation. As a woman who transcended the limitations imposed by her era, Elizabeth remains a symbol of determination and strategic mastery. Her ability to command respect and loyalty in a male-dominated world speaks to her exceptional character and political savvy. The Queen's life story challenges simplistic narratives, revealing a figure of complexity and depth whose impact reverberates through the centuries. Elizabeth's triumph as Queen by blood, prisoner by choice, is a testament to the enduring human themes of identity, power, and freedom. Her journey from a marginalized princess to one of England's most celebrated monarchs underscores the possibilities that arise when individual agency meets historical circumstance. In embracing her destiny on her own terms, Elizabeth forged a path that continues to inspire and captivate. Her reign, with all its triumphs and trials, stands as an enduring reminder of the intricate dance between personal will and the forces of history. Elizabeth's story invites reflection on the nature of leadership, the sacrifices it demands, and the legacy it leaves behind. Through her life, we glimpse the profound complexities that define human existence and the extraordinary potential that lies within the convergence of bloodline and choice.